back then heel hooks were okay. She got me in a heel hook. I didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. I did like a little bit with Tom Proctor back then, but he barely knew anything himself because everybody was just getting started. So I ended up kind of tearing my ACL tearing my ACL in that heel hook? From the heel hook. Yeah. Because she got me in the heel hook and she's going one way and I took my leg and just went over the other way. And so my knee did that. Still kept fighting and eventually I just rolled into a guillotine. Yeah. And I tapped out.
All right, so we're live here with Sunshine Fettkhether.
Right? That's right.
Yes. All right. Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
And I know that I've seen you through the combat sports community, like when I was starting, and I just kind of knew it. We were talking before we started recording, there wasn't a lot of media coverage of like Muay Thai, women's boxing,
right?
Too, kickboxing, all that stuff. So let's go back a little bit. How'd you get involved in martial arts?
When I was like in middle school, like around 11, 12, was dealing with bullies and stuff. And
the usual story. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, there was a show on called Sidekicks. It was, Ernie Reyes Jr.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I love that show and I would record it every week. So I would have it to watch over and over again. And, I just wanted to do what that kid was doing. So there was a karate school, taekwondo school down the street. And my parents, I convinced them eventually that I wanted to do it. And they signed me up and been doing it ever since.
So when you said convince your parents, like, what was that like? Hey, this is something I want to do. You're showing them the videos and stuff, or?
They knew what I was, I'd try to imitate the moves and, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I was going to the library and reading all the magazines and all the books I could find, just anything that I could get a hold of to learn about it. And it just took them some convincing that I actually wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a teenager. Yeah, sure. What do you want to do next week, right?
Yeah. I remember it was $30 a month to train.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of money back then. So, you got your parents to get you into Taekwondo. And then, so did you stick with it, or did you have like times where you stopped, or?
That was back east. I grew up back east from the time I was born until 17.
Oh, we're back east.
Maryland, Virginia.
Okay, northeast.
My dad was in the Coast Guard.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I was in Maryland when I was around 12, 13 years old. Started doing Taekwondo at a place called Kane Karate, that was in Maryland. So my dad would move us like every year, sometimes 2 years. So we moved from Maryland to Virginia, Newport News, and they signed me up right away at another Taekwondo place. And I stayed there for 2 years until I graduated high school. When I graduated high school, we moved to Arizona. Okay. And that was in 1991. 1991.
So how different? Like what part of Arizona did you move to? Do you remember?
At first it was like Baseline and Val Vista and Gilbert, and then eventually further east Mesa. So I had started when I came to Arizona, they enrolled me in another karate school. So I was still 17 years old. So wanted to do Taekwondo still. Had read about Muay Thai, but there was no internet. Or anything.
No, there's like Black Belt magazine.
Black Belt magazine. Yeah. There was a magazine called Fighters Incorporated from back then. And there was an article about Lucia Riker training Muay Thai in Amsterdam.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It said Lucia Riker, fucking big name.
Ended up fighting her in 2004.
So, were you looking up to her like when you saw that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah, because I was a little kid.
So you end up fighting one of your heroes that you looked up to.
I mean, I had never imagined that when I was
when you were looking
at those articles and reading about her. And I fought her in her hometown, basically.
That gave me goosebumps because that's like one of those stories. I think we hear it a lot in martial arts.
Yeah.
For people who have been like this career martial arts, like combat sports, they end up fighting the people that they look up to.
Right. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a very interesting story. So going into that, you're reading these magazines. There wasn't anything really about Muay Thai.
There was.
Yeah.
And then Jean-Claude Van Damme with Bloodsport.
Oh yeah. Paco and Paulo
Tosha. So we'd see him kick and stuff, and we'd do our Taekwondo kicks, and kick each other in the ribs like they did.
Like do the mock kick exchange. Yeah.
And then the movie Kickboxer came out, with Uncle Zian teaching him supposedly Muay Thai out in the jungle. He had him doing katas and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
the whole glass, the whole stigma of sticking your hand in glass and stuff like that.
So it was all of that, but there was no place for me to train Muay Thai when I lived in Virginia. So I just stuck with Taekwondo. And then when I moved out here to Arizona, Fairtex was still open. Mm-hmm. And I would drive down Chandler Boulevard and I'd see those guys running down Chandler Boulevard in their Muay Thai shorts. Mm-hmm. Like there's got to be a Muay Thai gym. Where are they doing this stuff? And, you had to like look in the yellow pages. Yeah.
For the youngins out there that don't know what this is, like I remember Yellow Pages, but it's gone. They still have yellowpages.com.
They do still. Oh, I think they actually have a Yellow Pages.
They still have the book.
It's real thin.
Because no one wants to be in it. Right. Yeah. Or I don't know if people don't have home phones anymore. Cause I used to be like, you look up, I need to find somebody's phone number. I'm going to look in the Yellow Pages. You can look up by their last name. Yeah. And so they like advertisements for businesses, all those things go in there. Kind of like how Google is nowadays for a search engine. Yeah, but on paper, they deliver to your house. Was it like once or twice a year or something like that? Something like that. Yeah. So did you end up found
Fairtex? It really scared me. It was much different from, the structure that that Taekwondo had in their classes and that type of training. I did start there, did a couple classes there, and then it shut down.
Yeah.
And all of those trainers and everybody that was training there and stuff, they kind of scattered and went different places. Mm-hmm. And Boone Kurd went to a place called Baker's Bad Boys on Rural and Apache in Tempe. And so I started training with him.
With Boone Kurd.
That's
a great trainer right there. Yeah. Because he ended up, obviously he's in California now and everything too. Go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt because he's a super funny guy because when I met him, he was like the most unassuming person ever. Yeah. And you go back and look and he was like this total badass. Yeah.
Well, I remember one of the times I was at Fairtex, he came out in a red Speedo and he had he was really friendly. Always had a big smile on his face. Yeah. And just walking around in a red Speedo.
Was he wearing a cape too or?
No, that was just the Speedo.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's very much like my first impression of this guy. Yeah. So this guy walking around cracking jokes, and you find out he could totally just mess you up in the ring.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. So how long were you training with him there for, Sunshine?
At Baker's Bad Boys, they lasted about a year before they shut down. And again, everybody kind of scattered. Mm-hmm. We had met this guy called Tom Proctor, named Tom Proctor. Mm-hmm. And, they had started doing this stuff called jujitsu. Nobody knew anything about it, but it was like this ground stuff. Mm-hmm. And I wanted nothing to do with it. But I was training with my husband at the time and he really was into the jujitsu. But guys like Shannon the Cannon were there and guys like that.
Big names in MMA.
Big names in MMA and especially MMA in Arizona at that time. Yeah. So all those guys were there and I wanted nothing to do with any of the ground stuff. I wanted to stay standing. That place shut down. I'm not sure where Boone Kurd went from there, but Tom Proctor took us to a place called Arizona Fitness. And that was in Mesa.
So how it's about a year. So was it like 93, 94?
No, it was later than that.
Later than 96?
Yeah, somewhere like well, my first fight was in 1997. Okay. So I started training at Arizona Fitness in 1995.
Okay. So it's probably 96. Yeah, 95.
Yeah.
So you were training there before your first fight that you had?
No. Oh. So I started training Arizona Fitness 1995. Trained for a couple of years, and then my first fight was in 1997, and that was actually MMA. Oh. We used to call it shoot fighting back then.
So when there was shoot fighting, because that's from Japan, correct?
Yeah.
So what were the kind of like rules for like shoot fighting back then? Was it similar to MMA? Were you wearing gloves? Like what was?
No gloves because you couldn't punch to the face.
Okay.
You could punch to the body. You could kick anywhere you wanted. You could do takedowns in wrestling. I eventually got guillotined and tapped out. Yeah. It was like 1 10-minute round. Oh, so what the UFC was like way back then.
Yeah, it was like Pride kind of had that model, Pride Championship, 10-minute first round and stuff. And then they'd have like 1 or 2 rounds after that, like 5 minutes or something like that. So this is like some true pioneer shit when it comes into combat sports with martial arts.
Yeah, that's just the way it was. We just did whatever we could just to get fights.
Yeah. So you did the shoot fighting. What happened after that? You said you got guillotined in it. It's like, I dabbled in like, MMA when they were doing pankration and stuff like that in California. And the same thing. First one, good. Second one, get thrown in my head. And I'm like, yeah, it's not for me. Not for me.
Not for me either. So, back then heel hooks were okay. She got me on a heel hook and I didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. I did like a little bit with Tom Proctor back then, but he barely knew anything himself because everybody was just getting started. So I ended up kind of tearing my ACL tearing my ACL in that heel hook? From the heel hook. Yeah. Because she got me in the heel hook and she's going one way and I took my leg and just went over the other way. And so my knee did that and that tore. Still kept fighting. And eventually I just rolled into a guillotine. Yeah. And I tapped out. That was like 5.5 minutes in.
Oh shit.
To the first round.
Yeah. Well, it's like that going into like deep water, uncharted territory after that 5 minutes, especially. Yeah. So, after with your knee stuff, did you end up getting surgery on that or anything?
No, I saw a doctor, did an MRI. It was like partially torn. So he said I could either just rehab it or go in and get it fixed. And I was like, I don't want to, I really like this fighting stuff. I don't want to
put that.
I don't want to be out for 6 months. So I didn't get it fixed until after my last fight in 2004.
Wow. Okay. So damn, that's a long time to have.
I fought with a partially torn ACL pretty much my entire professional and amateur career.
Shit. Well, I think for anybody that's listening, that's out there watching, that's, if you're dealing with any of that stuff, there's obviously a way around it. All right. So like,
well, surgery,
but you fought through it though.
Yeah.
So you still were able to, did that affect your fighting style or stuff that you could do?
No, I don't feel it. I got strength and everything around it. I mean, it was kind of, unstable a little bit, but it didn't really bother me.
Okay. So after that, it kept fighting. Did you do more shoot fighting or? No,
that was the only one.
That's the only one. Yeah. And
so I did, Muay Thai, kickboxing, locally in Phoenix. There were still people wearing like the long pants.
Yeah, like the pants.
Full contact. We called it full contact kickboxing. Like Chuck Norris type stuff.
Yeah, there's like PKA where they did like the number of kicks in the corner and stuff like that too. Was that?
That was a little bit before that.
A little bit before that? Okay.
Yeah. But the long pants were starting to die out and more people were doing kickboxing and Muay Thai.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you start delving into like amateur Muay Thai and kickboxing then?
Right. I just kept fighting from 1997 until 2001. I did amateur Muay Thai and boxing.
Okay. So you're doing I know a little bit about your boxing background, but I didn't know you were doing that as like an amateur and stuff too.
Yeah, I boxed as an amateur.
Okay. So back then when you were doing boxing as an amateur, was it still USA Boxing or did they do it? Okay. Yeah. So it was.
Yeah.
So, cause for me, I don't know much about like that part of like boxing and stuff. I know what it was. I know that it's been around since I was a kid, back in the 90s and stuff too. So you were staying active with Muay Thai.
I was trying to stay active with Muay Thai. So even at like Fairtex, guys would take boxing matches just to stay active.
Yeah. Like I heard Bunker took like a boxing match before just to like do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the idea that I had I just really liked fighting. So I wanted to do it as much as I could.
Hey,
so
can I sign up? Yeah. Put me in, right?
So I fought as low as 135 and as high as 154, just to take fights.
Yeah. Damn. So that's a big spread.
Yeah, it's a pretty big spread.
Big spread.
Yeah, it's a big spread.
Yeah. But especially like with combat sports, like now, like from combat sports for women then compared to now, right?
These girls are so blessed to have what they had, or what they have now. Much more popular, many more opportunities and promotions and things like that. So they're really lucky to be where they are.
Yeah. Cause I can imagine back then, I can't even like, you don't have the internet to like put out like a message like, hey, we're looking for this person. It was like,
well, by the time I turned pro in 2001, we had internet. You remember like 1999 and going into
it started like 98. It was like AOL. Everybody had instant messenger and stuff like that too.
But remember the thing where they thought that the banks were going to go down?
Yeah.
From
Y2K.
Y2K. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was pro during that time.
Oh, okay. So
we had internet and websites and all that stuff by then.
So then you were able to start networking that way. No longer having to do fax machines and shit like that. Mail. Yeah. Makes things much easier.
Right.
And the communication and, just going to like media and stuff like that too, like doing podcasts and these things that you didn't have back then. Right. Things that didn't allow the sport to grow for women at that time too. Right. And I've seen it so I've been in combat sports for like 17 years. And I remember there used to be one girl that trained with us. That was it.
Yeah, like I never had women to spar with.
Yeah.
I sparred men. I just thought that was normal. Because I'm not exactly small. So most of the women that did train were always smaller than me. So I had to spar the men.
Yeah, that was the normal thing that's just what you did.
I didn't think anything. Yeah. I mean, it was just normal to me.
Probably since you're doing Taekwondo and stuff too.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Always train with the boys.
Yeah. Well, obviously like putting in extra work and stuff like that too paid off because, tell me a little bit about your amateur fighting career. Let's go into the pro. So when you were fighting professionally, so was it full rules Muay Thai you were able to do back then, or?
Back then, they wouldn't let us fight with elbows.
Yeah, it was just, but they allowed
unless
knees?
You were like overseas or something.
Okay. Did you go overseas to go fight like that?
No.
Never got a chance to?
No, never got a chance. Trained for a couple of them.
Yeah, but they didn't happen for whatever reason or another. Relatable.
Yeah.
Going into like, for fighting then, what did they allow? Did they allow any kind of clinch at all, or
We called it modified Muay Thai. So you could clinch, you could throw knees, you could sweep from the clinch and everything that you can do now. You just couldn't elbow.
Okay. So this is like early 2000s then?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. Cause, and that was around the time when like UFC started like picking up too,
yeah, right
right
around the same time.
So, cause I remember the big argument was like, hey, if you're allowing these guys to elbow the shit at each other on the ground, how come we can't throw elbows standing up?
Right.
And that was like one of the things that kind of came like, oh yeah, it's allowed like around like I think it was like 2005, 2006 or something like that.
I thought it was even later than
maybe later. Cause I think some places might have been when that conversation started happening. But I remember it was like a very new thing. It was, the knee thing like you were doing, that was still new.
Yeah.
Right. Being allowed to clinch a knee.
Yeah.
When you were doing that too, when you went from amateur, were you fighting like without like shin guards and stuff, or what? How did they have you guys fighting?
It was like a tournament. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, my first fight was what was it? We called it international rules kickboxing.
Okay.
We weren't even calling it Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And I think my first fight I fought in Phoenix for a title. And so my first fight after that first MMA fight was a title fight, 5 rounds. I fought a girl local to Arizona named Heidi Dillon. And I ended up fighting her like 3 times kickboxing and 1 time boxing. So that one girl was like 4 of my fights.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Cause they're like, you wanted to see active.
Well, you run out of options.
Yeah. It's
so
like,
you just keep fighting the same girl.
Yeah. This time we'll tie a hand behind her back. Like, I don't know. Like try to do something.
So that got boring. And that's why I would like mix in boxing because there were a whole different set of girls doing the boxing.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously like, that's not normal to have to fight the same opponent 4 times in that short amount of time.
3 times Muay Thai, 1 time amateur boxing.
Oh shit! So you even went a step further and mixed it up.
Yeah,
yeah. That's wild. Like pioneering for women's combat sports.
Yeah,
it's a big deal. Going into your fighting and stuff. Then so like with the taking protection off and stuff like that. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of women doing it.
Right.
But Lucia Riker, right, was obviously, I saw a video, she fought a man, I think was like one of the matches, like, fuck it, I'm going to fight a dude.
Yeah.
I remember that's when I first heard about her, is like seeing this video. I'm like, what the heck? Who is this? And I looked
She fought a Thai man.
Yeah. It wasn't just like.
He knocked her out.
Yeah.
I believe.
Or he TKO'd her or something. Yeah. But like, I thought about it, like, who is this lady? And, she ended up in $1 Million Baby. Yeah. I think, right? She was like
she was the girl, the bad guy.
Yeah, the bad guy. So, I didn't know that. It's like I knew who Lucia Riker was. I was a $1 Million Baby. Didn't realize, connect the dots until recently.
Yeah.
But seeing her in the magazine and you started doing pro boxing.
Right.
All right. So tell me a little bit how that ended up happening. Like at what point was like, hey, I'm going to do a little more pro boxing because there's more opportunities there, or
a lot more opportunities to get fights. I was a welterweight, 147, but as a professional boxer, I fought as low as 140 and as high as 154. So again, it was just taking whatever opportunities I could, but in order to stay busy.
Yeah. Well, then going into that too, like, yeah, how did you end up going through the ranks of pro boxing? How many pro boxing fights did you end up having?
Pro boxing, 17, I believe.
17? Fuck.
Yeah.
So
there was a couple of exhibitions in there that any exhibition I've ever had, the girl tried to knock me out. So,
yeah.
I don't count those on my record, but I have several of those, but you can't count those on your professional record.
Yeah, that makes sense. So with like an exhibition, like when you were doing those, was that like in a gym kind of setting, or?
No, it was I had one in San Jose in like a big arena. The matchmaker had, I don't know what happened, mixed up the weights or something, told me 147, told her something else, like 139.
His big waist.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
So they wouldn't make the fight once we got to all the way to weigh-ins.
Oh shit.
And, I was a lot bigger. So they didn't, so we just compromised.
Hey, exhibition.
Did a 3-round exhibition.
Yeah. Got it. So at what point did you do any like title contentions or anything like that? Win any titles?
I won my first title in 2003, in Florida. That was, WIBC, I believe. And then I won 2 more after that.
Okay. So then when did you get the knock for Lucia Riker?
In 2004. I fought her in May 2004.
And where was that at?
Amsterdam.
Yeah. So was that your first time fighting overseas?
No, I fought twice in the Ukraine.
Oh, for boxing?
No, that was Muay Thai.
In Muay Thai?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I fought in Mexico.
Yeah. Popular.
Tijuana.
Where it was in Tijuana?
Yeah.
Because I know they were doing fights back there in the, like, I think it was late 90s so when that was, or early 2000s?
That was, I turned pro in 2001, so that was 2001, 2002.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
What was that like fighting in Tijuana back then? Was it on the beach? Like,
it was a highlight arena. And so they took us first they screwed everything up.
Wait, like
with the rules of the
sport?
fight. All of a sudden they didn't want to do knees. And so we had to negotiate with them on the rules, and we ended up being able to clinch and throw knees. But they changed the weigh-ins on us, and I was going down to 135 for this one. So them changing the weigh-ins, they changed it from the night before to the following morning. So that screwed up my weight cut. And just things like that. They took us to this arena, and they just came in with a trash bag full of Cleto Reyes gloves and threw them at us. And there was like used syringes on the benches, and they just put us all in one big like locker room, like red corner on one side, blue corner on the other side. Yeah, not very clean in there. So the gloves that they gave us were like Cleto Reyes.
The horsehair ones?
The horsehair ones. Yeah. These were like really old.
Yeah, and you could feel your knuckles through it.
You could feel your knuckles. I felt her knuckles on my head.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
It's a good way to break a hand, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that was one of
my pro Muay Thai fights.
That's gnarly. But that's very like... It's very much like pro fighting especially like those beginning pro fights.
I think I made $300 for that.
Woo! Big money, right? And, I was just in Monterrey, Mexico. I brought a guy down there to go fight, and we're like crammed in this van with like probably like 18 other people. We're all piled on top of each other. It's hot as fuck. He's like, damn dude, I didn't know we were gonna be doing this. I'm like, hey, it's pro Muay Thai in North America, bro. What'd you expect?
Yeah. Especially in Mexico.
Yeah. It's like you're getting herded, you're like the cattle, you're the show that they're going to go show everybody. Right. But how was it fighting in Mexico? How was your experience fighting there? Cause I had awesome experiences fighting in Mexico where it came into the people.
Yeah.
The audience.
Well, people
loves
are awesome. I love Mexicans.
Yeah. They're like, if you don't give up, they fucking love you no matter what.
Right.
right? It's like win, lose, draw. If you show heart and you fight your heart out,
That's the way that they fight.
They don't give up.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's like Julio Cesar Chavez, Jr. He gave up on the stool, and I know it was like, oh, he's not Mexican anymore.
Big disgrace. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
We've talked about it here on our podcast before, because it's like that cultural thing. And I think that's part of why we see Muay Thai growing. It's growing more and more all the time in Mexico. Yeah. Like a bunch of the MMA and jiu-jitsu places, they still have that MMA and jiu-jitsu sign up, but it's only Muay Thai there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like in Tijuana, there's like that main drag. I forget what it's called, but there's a bunch of Muay Thai gyms down there. Yeah.
Huh.
So it's one of those things that happened probably within the past like 8 years where just the switch happened. I don't know if it had to do with WBC getting involved or if it being more advertised on TVS Deca or something like that.
I think one championship has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. And
how do you
I don't understand how anybody could watch UFC when they got one to watch.
Yeah, the small gloves too. Like aesthetically, it looks very similar for like someone who doesn't know much about combat sports. They're like, oh, this is the same thing. They're just only fighting standing up,
laying on the floor.
Yeah, well, the stuff where I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah,
because that was a learning curve for people too when it came into UFC, but for especially non-martial artists.
Yeah, right.
But how do you feel with somebody with this experience with where Muay Thai is now with like the small gloves versus the big gloves? Do you have any opinion on it?
It's more dangerous. I've been hit in the head a lot, and just seeing people get hit with those small gloves like that, and they're not punching like this,
the
like
hammer
the
fist,
UFC guys do. That's a lot of head trauma.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about like, and also like I know a lot of fighters are breaking their hand too.
Right.
There's the young kid from Malaysia. I think he's like Johan. He's 16. He's broken his hand twice.
Yeah.
It's like you
don't have that extra padding on there to protect your hand. So it's more dangerous for both of you. Really. The smaller gloves, they're easier to get around. So you probably, you could argue that you get hit more, than you would with a bigger, surface area. Yeah.
Harder to snake a 10 ounce or like an 8 ounce glove through than it is like a 4 ounce MMA glove. Right. Yeah. So obviously you've been around MMA and stuff like that with some of the names you were talking about and everything too. Have you ever done any training with MMA gloves and stuff? Like when you were doing No. Yeah. No. Just the shoe boxing fight and that was it. Right?
I did jiu-jitsu for a little bit with Tom Proctor. Just couldn't get into it, but he told me that if I did jiu-jitsu, he'd be able to get me fights in Japan. And so I reluctantly did jiu-jitsu for a little bit, and we would train sometimes with the smaller gloves. But I couldn't get into that.
They just had to dangle the promise of the fight in front of you to get you to get in and grapple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of going in, for where you're at now. When was your last fight?
2004.
2004. Yeah. Where was that at?
Amsterdam.
And was that Lucia?
That was Lucia. Yeah.
So retirement fight, boxing. And that was for a world title? Or
no, that was 10 rounds.
10 round.
At 140 pounds. But no title.
No title.
Yeah.
When like you look back on your fight career, was there anything you would have done differently? Like looking back on it? No. You're happy with everything you did?
The stuff that we did was just crazy. The training that we did. The amount of rounds a week that we did was just insane.
Like when you say insane, like what's the number of rounds you think you would do in a week?
30 rounds. And we would spar 10 rounds Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes with different boxers. This is as a professional boxer.
Yes.
Sometimes with different guys, but there was never any women. So I was sparring with men. Pros.
Yes.
Sometimes amateurs. So yeah, that was a little crazy.
Yeah.
Sparring that number of rounds.
The head trauma from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I was going to change anything, it would be that. And yeah.
Even that, like, but one of the things, like what we know about that now, we didn't know back then too. When it came into like head stuff and.
No, there's a lot more talk about it with like football and things like that.
It really brought it to light.
And amateur boxing as well. So yeah, we know a lot more about that now.
Yeah. And it's notorious, and for anybody that doesn't know, is when you spar in boxing, it's essentially a fight a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so doing that many rounds a week, that adds up a lot over time. So I'm sure some of these experiences too shaped you as a coach, right?
Yeah. I do everything exactly the way that I had to do it, when I was fighting. So I've been doing the same thing for the last 30 years.
How long have you been coaching for?
Well, I've been teaching on and off since I was 17. I got my black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay.
Taught a little bit then, moved to Arizona. Didn't start. I turned professional in boxing in 2001, and I still wanted to do Muay Thai. So I taught Muay Thai at Arizona Fitness in Mesa, from pretty much the whole time I was a professional boxer.
Oh shit. So
had I been able to get Muay Thai fights, I would have stayed with Muay Thai.
Yeah.
I love Muay Thai.
I think that was a story for a lot of people that have gone that route into like boxing or kickboxing or MMA now is like kind of the thing that people transition into.
Right.
Because they just can't stay active as a pro Muay Thai fighter in the US unless you go move to China, Malaysia, or like Thailand.
Yeah, somewhere out here.
No. So when it comes into that too, what do you think, do you have any ideas about what might change that like kind of pro fight path for people? Is it just more shows, more fights, or is it something where there's more backing?
We can't do any more than what we're already doing.
Yeah.
Keep teaching it to people and so that they keep passing it down. We've got a kids program that we implemented about 3 years ago.
What age do they start at? 6
now.
That's a cool age to be training.
Yeah. Yeah. But when we first started it, we upped it to 6. It was 5. So we have kids that were 5 when they started with us, and now they're 8. And
you see that,
and they want to fight now because they're old enough to fight. So just keep passing it down. Just keep teaching people about it, and more and more people will get involved in the promotion of it.
Yeah. So it's like, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's like you teach kids, they grow up playing baseball, football. Even if they don't do it in college or professionally, they become fans of it. Right. Right. So now you have viewers, you have a market for it to go towards. So that's really cool to hear about the kids program and stuff like that too. Cause a lot of people don't think about kids doing Muay Thai. Like they're just like, what? You can do it? It's like, yeah, of course you can. Yeah. Like, come on. What made you change from stop doing the 5-year-olds? Just number of kids, or
they're just not ready yet. So we upped it to 6, and it makes a big difference because they're already in school at that point. At least in kindergarten,
they're used to listening and focusing on something.
And I don't teach them.
Yeah,
the Daniela teaches them, and she's been doing it since it started.
Wow. And Danielle is one of your coaches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're 3 years in now. So we got kids that are going to fight probably in August.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what's the name of your gym?
Sunshine's Boxing, Muay Thai, and Fitness.
And where is it at?
It's on Priest Drive between Warner and Ray.
Okay. If anybody's listening or watching, how could they find you guys online?
You can go to sunshinesgym.com.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll make sure to put that down in the show notes. Anybody's listening or watching, check down below. I'll make sure to put that in there so they can go find you. Especially if you have kids, put your kid as in martial arts because it will
adults too.
Yeah, but
mostly adults.
Yeah,
mostly adults.
That market though, it's like as those kids start getting older, they're going to become the adults, right? Right. And hopefully they're dragging some of their friends in there, right? But anybody in there, the reason I said that is because I have this big push that I'm a big believer that those kids programs are probably one of the most important things you can do for the future of our sport in the U.S. And so it's really commendable that you're doing that. And like anybody that teaches kids, like the adults, like for Muay Thai, they know what it is. They show up. Right. Right. Kids, it's like I had to like retrain your audience. Like, hey, they're not going to be bashing each other's head in at 6 years old. Right. So,
I mean, just face it. It's not exciting to watch. Yeah. Don't exactly enjoy watching little kids hit each other in the face.
No, it's not something that like, because they were talking about the head trauma stuff and everything. Have you seen, like, what do you think about, you haven't had any of the kids compete yet.
Not yet.
But what do you think about the no head contact stuff for kids when it comes into developing them into full contact with the head contact?
Probably a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, save them from that head trauma for as long as you can. I mean, eventually you're going to have to add it.
Yeah.
But if they started out with, shoulders and down, then nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of targets in Muay Thai.
Right.
Whole body and stuff too. I agree. I just always like to pick people's brain on different concepts. Some people say, hey, think about this with the head. Like, the kids need to learn how to defend their heads. Like, yeah, of course, but their shoulders aren't even really developed yet to keep their hands up that high.
Right. Yeah, the gloves are bigger than their head.
They were kind of sitting there and trying to like, okay, I'll keep my hand up and it's down here, even more than like, the adults and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for anybody that might be thinking, about starting in Muay Thai, whether it be man, woman, I think it's great to see women-led teams, and we're seeing more and more of them.
Yeah.
As you referred, there's one in, Columbus, Ohio. I think it's called Short North.
Short North.
Yeah, it's a girl that's out there, but I've seen them at the tournaments. They came to USMTO also.
Really?
I've seen them at the TBA tournament, and I saw they have a strong team, women and men.
Yeah.
That are there. I'm like, who is this? And I was like, oh, it's a woman-led team. Dope. Like, and they're consistently good. I've seen consistency.
What's it called again?
Short North.
Short North.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason I remember it is because somebody just asked me, do you know anybody in Columbus, Ohio? And I looked up, like, oh, and I've seen them fight
Columbus,
before.
Ohio. All right,
Yeah.
I'll look them up.
Of all the places, but, they're consistent, right? And so it's cool to see, and that brings more eyes on the sport, brings a different demographic to the sport, and it builds it and it grows it.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been at this location that you've been at?
At this location, we're 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Damn. And before that, you had, had like a co-ownership at a place or something like that?
I had a partner at a place called Best Muay Thai.
Yeah.
In Tempe.
I remember Best Muay Thai.
Yeah.
You guys were popping.
Yeah, we were pretty busy.
Yeah. Busy. How many years was that gym around for?
We opened in 2000. It was like 9 years.
That's a good run.
This is, yeah.
Yeah. Good run. Now you have your gym that you guys got running and everything like that too. I'd highly encourage anybody that's listening, go check it out. And thanks for coming in today, Sunshine.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you.
it. Of
Thanks
course.
for having me.